you guys got to have a little fun thing going on there. You guys, I really appreciate you giving me the feedback on what was happening, and anybody who's watching the replay, apologize. Okay.
Thank you for your patience. Everybody.
Yeah, thank you for your patience. And just keep us tabbed with what's going on if anything happens technically. All right, so let's talk about this Gloria. This is chapter 6 in his book, by the way. What I can do here is I'll pull up his book real quick so that you guys can see. This is let me see. Give me a second here because I'm gonna pull it up. All right, so I'm going to share screen. I'm going to let you guys see what his book looks like, so you guys can have an idea. Okay, so this is his book, The Devour in Silence. And why don't we just start with, why did you write this book? Let's start there.
Sure. I originally wrote this book to create awareness, because once it's really interesting, people start talking about this subject. All kinds of people have had a wide variety and a myriad of paranormal experiences, which they only feel comfortable talking with people that have shared just similar experiences, so they don't feel ridiculed or dismissed and everything else that goes with that. And so I wanted to say, hey, I've experienced quite a lot of things myself, and this is what prompted me to get into this work, is because I was a victim of this first. Yeah,
and if you guys don't know the whole story, you can actually watch the original video that I did with him called The Exorcist. So today we're gonna kind of dive into some of these stories. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of pull this one up. This one right here is the story called Case Study 6, Gloria and Nathan. And this is the one of the chapters that we're going to kind of talk about. So why don't you kind of dive in and talk about this? And you were saying that everybody was talking to you about this person, Gloria. So
right, and at that point in time, I'm like, all right, why is everyone asking me if I know this person? And okay, we're in the same social circles, but we have not met. And at the end of the night, when there was some time with a couple of trusted people left over, I'm like, all right, what's going on, and who is this Gloria person? And they began to tell me about this experience, that they moved into this home, and it's very haunted, and there's a lot of banging, a lot of things going on in the home. A lot of electricity dropping out, kind of like some of the technical issues we continue to have when me and you ever try to talk over the phone or even do a simple video call.
Oh my God.
However, it was only their house. Like, they had ComEd come out several times. Some of the things began to really ramp up when her young son said, "Hey, they're trying to come and take me in the middle of the night." And she's like, "Sweetheart, you're on the second floor. Mom and Dad are right next to you. No one's going to come and take you. Like, that's not possible. We have a dog. Like, no one's going to come into our home." And then she realized that somehow his screens were missing on his second story window. So, because he said that they were coming at night to pull him out of the bedroom window so he could join them. And she was terrified. What really hit the nail on the head with this for me personally was the fact that he drew, in the Kabbalistic tradition, there's a diagram called the Tree of Life. He drew an inverted version of the Tree of Life with all the darkness and all the blackness. Like, he had the symbol proper for the black salient sun.
Oh,
which is chaos. And this young man has no experience of these things. He's like 6, 7 years old. And what he drew in that picture was terrifying. It was clear. And I'm like, wow, all right, there's a serious problem here. So it was whenever there's young children involved, it's a drop everything, and we have to make this happen right now. If not today, tomorrow. So it was very pressing to see him, and I was scared for him. The fact that they purchased the house and those screens were gone, and you have to take them from the outside.
Well, let me ask you this.
Sure.
Can we kind of talk about what you just said about the tree of life? Because I don't think not everybody understands what that is.
Okay.
So there's this thing called a tree of life. It's a Sephira, and it is the consciousness evolution of rising up, so like as you move through it, through your consciousness, as you go through the different aspects of it, you eventually join with God. And this is the inverted. So it's like Malkut being earth at the bottom and Keter being God at the top. This is reversed. So it's like, what? Hell? What is it?
It was very similar to the elements of nature being over spirit.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So you have in the Kabbalistic tree of life, you have 10 emanations. It's like a little circuit board of how energy moves from the unmanifest to the manifested world. Right. And so what this boy drew, I was when I saw it, I was scared of it.
He drew the reverted,
right,
or inverted.
So right, he drew this tree of life diagram with these creatures that were in there that were it took my breath away.
Oh my God! I wish I had a picture. I wish I had a picture of that.
I was extremely concerned for him at that point because they realized that, well, how the hell did this kid's screens come off of his bedroom window and he's on the second floor and they come from the outside? You have to take them off from the outside of the house. You can't open your window and pull your screens through your window.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that way. So of course then they were like, is somebody trying to abduct our child, because they would come in there and then his windows would be open, these screens would be gone, and he was like, they're here. And so initially when I first saw this young man, and his mother actually flipped out, what really tripped her trigger too was she said his eyes turned black, like black ink wells. They just turned black, watery, and he started hissing at her. So
he started hissing at her?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, that's not a situation that you want. So things were progressing pretty rapidly for how obviously his consciousness was being affected by some of these other entities and these experiences that he was having.
So was he in and out of consciousness? Like, and you guys, if you have any questions, that's the purpose of doing this live. If you want to know, like what, like I'm asking questions. If you have a question that you want to know about it, type it in the comments, because we're going to be going through some of these stories, and for the purpose of you to be able to ask questions. So just FYI, as you're moving in, please say hi. Also to just know that this is a real exorcist. Okay, this is what he does for a living. So this is some interesting stuff. So what ended up happening with the story? Finish telling us.
So in working with the young man, and I went to the house. Got to walk through the house, and they were taking him to his grandmother's house so that we could have some private time to do ritual. But the glare of death that kid gave, like usually when you see a kid, they're 5 or 6, 7 years old, you're like, oh no, hi, how are you? At least they kind of smile or give something. He looked right through you. Wow. I said, okay, this is great. And that was a huge reason to get this done as fast as possible, and to start doing the actual ritual work, like there in the home space. Usually I don't do the home space anymore, but every once in a while you come across an emergency case where it's like you don't have the luxury to be like, all right, I'm going to go downstairs to my temple space, make sure I have everything right and proper. You get a call sometimes. That's like, just grab your briefcase, grab your rosary, your holy water, your holy oil, and those things, your prayer book, and off you go. And sometimes that's just how it happens.
So what happened as you were trying to remove these entities of sorts? Did you find out like what kind of entity was it? Was it like a ghost, or was it like a demon, or what was it?
Typically what I do is I will find out do the divination work and find out if an entity is there. Of course, I want to rule out all the psychological issues that go with that. But once I find out what's there, it's how many are there, then building the actual sigils and being able to call them out on the carpet and kick them out.
Okay.
That is the exact process.
So you don't need to know their names?
You do need to know their names, and that's part of the divination process.
Oh.
It's like say for instance, if an entity has a 6-letter name and I get A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever, it's like, okay, now I can take that, I can apply this with the through the Rose Cross, or I can use similar tools, and from that I can build the actual sigil. Once I have the sigil, then I can call them on the carpet, because that's their name, that's their personal signature, energy signature in space and time. And once you have that, then there's rules, just like in math and science and physics. And someone calls you by your name, that you're gonna answer, you're gonna respond. There's a little bit more to it than that, but the rites of Solomon's magic grant us that leverage, as opposed to like the Roman rite, where you're battling with this thing and trying to get it to give up its name and its sigil and all that stuff like that. It just takes too much time and effort.
Wow, that's really interesting. Have you ever been in a situation before you started trying to figure out what their name was, and actually spoke to a spirit and asked them what their name was?
Yeah, and I did come across a case that was like that, where I went there and I went to do the blessing and everything for the home, and the client's husband turned on me, when he started doing this whole shaking and mumbling. I'm like, what's going on with this guy? And I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Like, this just can't be happening. I know that the house is haunted. He's had some issues, but and the next thing you know, you have a real problem on your hand, because they go superhuman on you, like right now.
Right. Yeah, because they get all like superpowers and stuff.
Right. Now you're trying to contain somebody, right? You definitely don't want to hurt them. You're trying to help them, and they're going to hold on to that.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, I don't want to do this route anymore like this. This is risky, because I'm glad in that particular situation that we're rolling around on the carpet for about 2.5 hours.
Oh God.
Moving furniture, trying to get this thing done.
So what ended
that's not what you want.
So what ended up happening with Gloria? What did you end up doing?
With Gloria and Nathan's case, it was a matter of removing those entities from the home and banishing them out. Mm-hmm. And when her son came back home, it was like nothing had ever happened. And her case was interesting too, and it stands out in my mind, because there's sometimes everyone's in different stages of life, and people are like, hey, I can't pay you anything. It's like, it's fine. The bottom line is that the child's fine and everyone's happy and healthy, and we can all move on. And she came to my house that night, I think it was 10:30 at night, and someone was ringing the doorbell, and I'm like, who the hell's at the door right now? And she had baked a homemade loaf of bread and stuff like that, and some things to show her thanks, and that was really cool.
And was it over? I mean, gone forever? Have you heard anything back from them?
Nothing. I haven't heard anything but good things from them, and we still stay in touch. Uh-huh. That's another interesting point, is that sometimes people are so freaked out about what happened and what they experienced. They're like, hey, listen, I hope that we never hear from you again, because we don't want to think about this ever again. We want to forget it and move on. And other people are like, hey, I'm just want to say hi and keep in touch, just in case things kick off again.
Oh my gosh.
So it's an interesting thing that takes place with that.
Oh my gosh. God, that's crazy. Okay. So you were going to want to talk about, you also said that you wanted to talk about another story. Let me see if I can pull that up here. I think it was chapter 7.
That's correct.
The Jerez family. How do you say that? Jerez?
Juarez family.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm not Hispanic. I don't speak Spanish.
No, it's okay.
So, okay. Yeah, so this is chapter 7 here, where we're going to talk about this story. There's some pretty interesting stories in here, you guys. I mean, it's a really interesting book. You might be interested in getting it. I will put after this is over, I'll go back into the comments and I'll put a link to it if you guys are interested. So let's talk about this.
Yeah. So with the Juarez case, I was working at a Wiccan metaphysical store in Elgin, Illinois, called the Gypsy Haven. Mm-hmm. And this woman had gotten in touch with me there and had told me that her family was in desperate need. And come to find out that she lived further up north towards the Wisconsin border by the Fox Lake area. And growing up in the house, there was some haunting and some things going on there, and everybody simply ignored it. But the one daughter couldn't stand it. She was like, as soon as I can move out of this house and turn 18 years old, I'm out, which I definitely recognize with, because I had the same thing. It's like, first chance I get, I'm out of here. And so she had found that her local church parish, they had an apartment above the church. So she worked out a deal with the father there and said, he's like, hey, if you take care of the church and some of the grounds, then you can stay in the apartment and for free. That's what your rent charges is to take care of things, which she thought was great. It was a great, big, huge space. She was by herself and she had her privacy and her independence for the first time ever, or so she thought. And so she would go down to clean the church and she would start feeling uneasy and start feeling like she was being watched. And she's like, this is kind of odd. And then she started becoming terrified to be down in the church space. So one day she'd go upstairs to the apartment and she'd always heard the sound of these kids laughing. And she thought that maybe after the church service, some of the kids had come upstairs to her apartment looking for a place to play or hide or whatever. And she saw these two boys that were dressed in like black, like almost like funeral attire, and they had a black sash they're holding on to in between them. She's like, hey, you can't be up here, get out of here. And they just sneered at her and they just dissolved into the actual floor like they weren't there.
What?
But the black sash that they were holding on to and they were dancing with stayed there. So she freaked out, and of course she got in contact with the father and said, hey, I'm noticing some weird things going on here, and he gave her some prayers and some different things to do with that. So again, she's seen these boys dancing in her apartment. She did the prayer work and they started sneering at her and making these weird gestures and cries and moans, and these kids would disappear into the floor. So
wait. Can you back up some?
Sure.
What? So they were like spirits?
Yes.
And they're children, though.
That's correct.
So they were ghosts?
Yeah. Yes, in a sense.
Okay. Why were they sneering if they were children that passed away?
Oftentimes, different spirits will take on the resemblance of innocents being children.
Really?
And they're anything but children, and they're anything but nice.
Oh.
And so
okay.
This woman now was scared, and she's like, I have to get the heck out of here. And what's really interesting is that her father at that point, I guess he had started getting some Alzheimer's and some dementia issues. And her brother had passed from a car accident several years back, and they put his ashes by the tree in the front yard. And her father started telling her, there's little boys looking in my window at night, and they see them crawling by their son's tree, crawling on the ground like animals at night. And she's like, oh my God. And he described them to her. She's like, this is what I'm seeing from the church.
That's like the creepiest thing I've ever heard.
It was.
I mean, like, that's beyond. Just like so creepy. I mean,
Michelle,
I don't
It was the only time it was one of the few times where I'd been to someone's house where they were like, okay, I'm going to go to the kitchen, I'm going to go to the pantry, and people moved together in units. Wow. Nobody went anywhere by themselves in the house because the father started demanding that someone stay in his bedroom with him at night because he was terrified because these little boys were at his window and doing all this creepy stuff. And it was like, wow. And it, to make a long story short here also, it didn't help that they had found out that the local priest was being brought up on sexual abuse charges and allegations. And he was removed from the church. So these things that came up were from this massive vortex of negativity, right? In a place that's supposed to be sacred, it's supposed to be holy. But there's a great underlying current of corruption there. That was really intimidating. And that was a heck of a force to deal with and to clear it. But I was successful in getting that energy cleared out so they could move on.
Oh my God. So that's like these creepy little kids like crawling around hissing and doing some weird shit. Oh, and they were like kid spirits that were evil. And oh my God,
it totally makes me think of Salem's Lot. Remember the old horror story of Salem's Lot when the young man hears someone at his bedroom window and he looks out and there's a ghost floating there because it's on the second floor, but it's a little boy. But it was, I've never seen people that scared. Like I went there and I'm like, wow, they're literally standing side by side next to each other to go to the bathroom, to go to the pantry, to go check the mailbox. Like nobody was moving.
So these weird looking creepy kid spirits that were hissing and doing weird shit, and then they would disappear into the floor.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
When they manifest like that, do they manifest physically, or are they more like shadow creatures, or are they like see-through? What do they look like?
When she witnessed them at the church, she had honestly thought in her apartment, she believed that there were kids that had left the congregation and came upstairs to play games or hide or whatever. She was like, I thought they were real, 100%. They weren't see-through. They looked solid. And the fact that they held on to this sash, she goes, I don't even know where this sash came from, but she was terrified, and I can't blame her for that. I can't fault her for that at all.
Wait a minute. So what do you mean they were holding onto a sash?
They had like a black piece of like a silk piece of material between them that they were physically holding onto and dancing with.
Weird.
In circles. Right.
And what do you think that means?
That's a very good question. I am not sure, to be honest with you. I am not sure, because she was like, that's not my property. And that's not like anything that I've seen in the actual church and cleaning it, or that someone left behind. And, like they have a lost and found section. Of course, somebody leaves their pocketbook or a scarf or a pair of gloves or a hat while they come in for church service. But to have a black sash that has no business in your apartment, you don't recognize, and it was empty when you moved in there, and they have these little boys dancing with it and holding it between them. Yeah, that's pretty damn trippy.
That is trippy. I'm really curious about what that means. That's a little on the weird side, It
definitely is. It definitely is, for sure.
Oh my God. Okay. Oh, wow.
Is there any questions popping up right now?
No, I don't see any questions. If anybody has any questions, please let us know. I don't know, I'm trying to ask the questions I think you guys would probably want to hear, but if you have any questions, please ask. Okay. So, I'm not here seeing anything, but as they do pop up, spirit children are quite complicated situation. So Lucky Stone said that spirit children are quite a complicated situation. Obviously.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Obviously. Oh my God. Yeah.
And that's one of the things in doing this type of work with and talking to other practitioners. They're like, it's the prettiest things and the most innocent things that will really look to tear you apart. You have to be very careful. You have to question everything, and realize that what you're looking at is not what is the reality of that situation. those aren't little boys. They are not playing some kind of kids game. They are they're getting into your conscious and then like, hey, notice us, and they're feeding off of your energy, and if you could see them and how they really appear, you'd probably lose a lot of sleep. I'll just say that.
Okay.
Because sometimes when they do appear in their gross forms, you're like, what the hell is that? And how is this even possible?
Yeah. So Lucky Stone asked, have you seen either kind children spirits and evil being pretended to be children? I think that's what you're talking about right there.
Yeah.
Aren't you? You were saying that they were actually pretending to be.
Just harmless kids dancing, playing this little game that's harmless, right? And sometimes I like what you said about the black sash, because people ask me, well, okay, I had something here in my house or this attached to me, and they want to know what its name is, and it's like, I'm not going to share that with you because I don't want you to think about it anymore. Yeah. I don't want you to lend it any more energy than it's already taken from you. And some people will be like, oh, I was just kind of curious. I'm like, I'm curious too. And there's sometimes it's like, no, I'm not going to.
Sometimes it's just not something that you want to have in your conscious mind.
Right, yeah. Right. You just want to, you don't want to dance with the devil very long, right?
I wouldn't
make
want
it
to
short,
dance with
sweet,
him at
to
all.
The point. Yeah, and be like, I'm not sure. I don't understand everything either. There's some cases that sometimes I'm like, that doesn't really make you wonder how can this be possible.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is, in this situation, these children were pretending. I mean, these were spirits pretending to be children.
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Lucky Stone. That in this particular situation, yes, they were pretending. But he also asked, have you seen kind children spirits? Like, do you ever see like good spirits that kind of pop up?
Yes, it is very, very rare, because most of the time when people, just when I'm about in daily life, I can notice and pick up on some different things. But when I'm involved in casework, the majority of it is negative. It's not what you want.
Have you ever been in a situation? Well, like years ago, I think I told you this. I used to belong to one of those ghost busting companies. I call it a Ghostbusters, but you know what I mean. Paranormal activity companies that go out and investigate homes.
Yes.
I don't think that they really half the time know what they're doing. They're literally just, investigators shooting, using their little machines to see if something's out there. But we used to get a lot of calls. I was hired as their medium, and we would get a lot of calls. And sometimes, most of the time, it was nothing. There was one situation where they kept on hearing these sounds and all this stuff, and we were interviewing them, and the guy who ran the company was going into the attic, and he heard all this clicking noise, and he goes, okay, I think that's where the sound's coming from. And then right about when we were about to leave, the woman said, well, what about the fact that it's always changing to Tommy the Train on the TV. It's always flipping to that show. And the fact that somebody's always like really small yanking on my shirt or my skirt. And it was like a child spirit. And I was like, okay, hold on a second. I'm gonna step in here. And I did some mediumship work, and I ended up realizing it was a little boy. And what happened was he got ran over by a car on a bicycle, and he just never really knew how to like leave. So I helped him cross over, and voila. So, and that was and then after that, she was like, I feel bad, I kind of miss him. The little boy yanking, like, I just want to watch Tommy the Train.
And it's an interesting thing that you bring up, because there's this impasse where the living people want to experience the spirit world. The spirit world wants to cross back over and have a glass of wine, feel the touch of someone that's close to them or that they love, and they want to do all these things. So it's kind of like going back and forth. You know what I mean? I had this friend of mine, and she says, we've had some interesting discussions about some of these things, but one of these times, can you show me what this is? And I was like, wow, okay. So I'm like, well, we're going to go to this outdoor park. It's going to be at night. We're right on the Fox River, and they have a large, like a open event room and space that's open to the outdoors. And so I brought milk and honey for the trees and incense and cauldron oil and all this stuff, and did a whole banishing and made an offering to the land. And Potawatomi Park is an Indian park. So used to be all Indian land. So when the Indian voices came from like everywhere in full stereo, her eyes were about as big as saucers, and she just turned and just latched onto me as hard as she could. I'm like, relax, relax, relax. They're just letting us know that they're here. I'm like, I'm just telling you right now, don't run, because if you run and you break this, our door of protection, I can't really help you if things go sideways. These seem really friendly. They're just letting us know that they're here. And then, she was like, wow, okay, that was more than enough for me, and I don't ever want to do this again. Which is fine, because people want to experience the spirit realm, but that's a classic example of that. Do I know who all those Indian voices were, or what they wanted, or what they said? Yeah. Hell no. Did I feel threatened by them? No, but it was really cool to know that they were there, and they acknowledged that I just came to give a proper land offering and give thanks. And they also made their presence known. So it was a really great night.
Wow, that's interesting.
As far as I was concerned, at least.
It's always interesting hearing these stories because, I have a friend who is, he does like hoodoo and stuff. I actually have two friends that do it. And hearing their stories, they're conjuring that stuff. They wear them on their back, and I forget what it's called, where they like wear it like clothing, or something like that. It's kind of an invocation, but it's sort of like they're carrying them or something. You know what I'm
Interesting.
Talking? Yeah, and they actually pull these spirits up and they work with them. It's and then like they'll go to the graveyards and they'll try to find spirits that are willing to work. I'm really surprised that nothing like creepy has followed them around.
Yeah, that's funny.
I know. It's like I hear your side of it, and then I hear their side of it, and then I'm just like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, if you can have a positive interaction, of course, that's always welcome. In the realm of doing magic, as we've been trained to do, to reach out and contact an angel or a guardian spirit or archangel, it's serious business, and you need to approach it with great solemnity, and it's not some kind of joke and everything, and really honor that relationship. And they aren't there to be tasked. The majority of the spirits or angels that you do contact, if you ask them for basic information, they will provide you that. But and that's fine too. If you show me what I'm missing, or a different perspective, or tell me a story that relates to this situation, because stories and metaphors are always great, right? And then that way you have an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
I can recall also at the same Indian park one time, we decided to do a fairy queen, Fata.
What is that?
What
is a Fata?
Well, Fata is the name of a fairy queen.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the Book of Oberon. Her name and her sigil was in there. So we gone to the grocery store and buy all these flowers and just great stuff, because you want to make it worthy of their nature, right? If all you have is a stick of incense and an open heart, sure, that's still going to work, because they can see what your intentions are. But with her energy, it's the first time I'd ever seen that happen, where it was like she came through, but she came through with a bodyguard host of maybe 50 or 60 other spirits.
What?
And all of a sudden that whole large outdoor area was full, like an army. And it's like, hey, hang on, we're not here to task you with anything. We're not here to try to get anything out of you. I'm just trying to ask you how to communicate with trees, and these flowers and everything here, all this stuff is an offering out of respect for you. And then once she kind of realized, okay, these guys aren't here to try to force me to do anything or to utilize me for some negative magic, then the whole atmosphere changed, and it was very, very cordial and very light, which was great.
Have you ever experienced a djinn?
I have, and that is one of the stories that's in the book.
Really? Okay, let's talk about that. Which one?
Okay,
which story is it?
I think that is in study 5 under Hazin.
Hazin.
On page 50.
All right. Okay. I got that one pulled up. All right. So let's talk about the djinn. I want to hear this. This sounds...
Sure. So there was a young man that was born in Pakistan, and he had gone down to investigate the small body of water near the village that he was in. And he said that he felt like his body was overtook. He was forced to the ground, and just things weren't right for this young man after this, right? I'm trying to recall all of the specific details to this. His parents knew that he was afflicted, so they got in touch with, I believe it was like a cleric or a shah of some sort. For the Muslim people out there listening, I apologize if I'm not using the correct terminology. I'm not really very familiar. And so the cleric did his works, and they felt that he was fine and he was good to go. And he had moved to the United States some years later, but he had struggled with some addiction issues, and had some time in and out of prison, and just a bad, his life was going in a really negative direction. And so once I got the information from him and sat down and did the investigative work on my end, I'm like, wow. I'm like, all right, this is something that's totally different. This name is way out there. And, well, let's call this thing into the circle and into the triangle of art and see what it has to say for itself. And the djinn almost looked like, almost like ninja warrior attire, like different colors of fabric that were wrapped, like a character from the desert. But it was like, all right, so I'll start using these names of Christ and some different things, and it just laughed. It just like, you've got to be kidding me. I was here before Jesus Christ. It doesn't mean anything to me. What else do you have?
Oh my God!
And I'm like, was
he bad, or was he?
Oh yeah. He was not very friendly, and he was pissed that he got called, because you have that ability to do that with these Solomonic rites of magic. And he was very unhappy. And at that point, I'm like, oh wow, I'm in a lot of trouble right now, because I'm not sure what to do, and I'm caught flat-footed. And the only saving grace was to call upon Goddess Kali, the Indian goddess.
Now that's a Hindu goddess.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But it's from that same neighboring area. And between Kali and the traditional Christian names that were used, they work together in tandem. Believe it or not, I'd never seen that before. I never considered that or thought it was a possibility. And I realized how ignorant I was when it came to working cross-culturally. If you come across an American Indian deity and you approach it with the names of Christ, it doesn't mean anything to them. They're not bound to that. They don't have to answer to that either. There's rules in calculus, there's rules in trigonometry, and there's all these different rules for different sets of math and science, and you need to address each one correctly.
Wow. Okay.
Otherwise,
So this is very interesting to me. So it sounds almost like there's a hierarchy of different commands and different chains of something. So Kali was able to get in there and, like, you know,
Kali, the demon slayer, goddess warrior.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm very familiar with Kali.
Amazing, and I'm super thankful because I at that point I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Because now that you've pissed this thing off and it's not answering, or it's not going along like it's supposed to with everybody else. You know, you call down Metatron, you call down Jesus, and Yod-Hey, Vav-Hey, and whatever else you wanted to call it. It's just like it's like that's that all you got? You're wasting my time.
Wow.
So it was very eye opening.
Wow,
experience.
That to me, that right there is really quite valuable, because if you don't know what you're dealing with, you don't know how to get rid of it. You know, you can't just go and, like, call down the Christian traditions with certain spirits, because it may not be from their lineage.
Right. So it was a really good learning opportunity, because I'm like, wow, it was pretty arrogant of you to think that this jinn was going to answer to it. But like I said, I'd never come across anything like that before. As a matter of fact, this whole time of taking cases for the past 12 years plus, each one you learn something from. Each one provides you different insights. I'm glad that it happened. I'm glad that things didn't get out of hand. I'm super thankful to that.
We are, I want to kind of open this up for any kind of questions you guys might have. If anybody has a question, please put it in the comments so that, you know, we can answer what it is that you might have that you're curious about. If there's anything else, just I'm going to give it a second and see if anybody has any questions. I find this really interesting. So have you ever encountered a jinn that, because I was under the impression there was all different types of jinns, and some were bad and some weren't. One of my personal friends told me that she was a jinn spirit, and in a past life she was actually captured by a king, and he would only let her out when he wanted her to perform certain types of divinations.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's that's why I was asking about jinns. You know, like, have you ever met one?
Yeah, I have never had any other interactions with them outside of that. You know, outside of the typical, silly nonsense of Aladdin's lamp and that type of thing. I've never really done any investigative work or any real serious inquiry or study about jinn.
Well, I think that it's an interesting thing. I didn't even know that these things existed until one day I was channeling for somebody, and she said she needed to know, her father had passed away, and she needed to know, like, what had happened. And and all of a sudden it came through that he was being affected by a jinn. And I was like, and I kept on thinking she meant, because she told me he drank a lot. So I kept on thinking it was gin, like the alcohol gin. And I was like, but they keep on telling me it's spelled Jinn, and I had never even heard of a gin before. So at that time, it's like, you can't make this shit up,
Right.
And
that's correct.
And so I was like, and she's like, oh, I know what that is. And it was my first encounter. Like, I can tell you this. I was raised Christian, and I didn't even believe in half of this stuff. I didn't believe that there was goddesses and all this other stuff until they start showing up,
Right.
And you start seeing fairies and goddesses and all this other stuff. And I tell you what, when that starts happening, you start going, well, I guess you are real. And
yeah, I mean, I told you what happened with the actual fae. It's like, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Come on, guys. And you're talking about Peter Pan and stuff, and it's just, I found it to be agitating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So until you actually seen it, and you're like, what the hell was that? What is that? And you're like, wait a second. And it's like, okay, all right, so let's talk about this. The possibility that this thing is real. It's out here. What is it doing? What is this objective, this elemental nature spirits? And so I decided I'm going to study these. I'm going to read some books up on this, and I got this copper dish, and I would put the strawberries, cheese, butter, thyme, and sugar, and all that stuff on there that they actually like in shiny things. And I said, from the farms, from the fields, from the land, as we continue to stand, land energies which surround us, may the peace of the goddess of God continue between us now and always. Your positive energies are welcome here. And I put the dish out. Mm-hmm. I did that faithfully for weeks. And the next thing you know, they came in droves. Michelle, it was out of control,
weeks?
Man.
It was weeks? Weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I did it every day for weeks until... man, oh man. Then the house
and then they just came in drones.
They came in droves. Wow. By the numbers. They came.
Numbers.
Like, hey, this person's welcoming us here, and they recognize us.
Oh my God.
The car keys would be on top of the kitchen table, then you would find them underneath your bed in your bedroom. Your phone would be missing. The stuff doesn't work right. Your washing machine lid would pop up in the middle of a cycle and stop with the machine full of water. Engagement ring gone for 6 months till I had to do magic to get that back. I mean, they came to the point where I had to kick them out. I said, that's
now,
it. I can't.
Was it because they like that kind of stuff? Are they stealing it?
Yeah. They're naturally a little bit mischievous. Yeah, they like to have fun. Mm-hmm. They like to play pranks, and it's like,
well, I know that personally. Like I told you, I lived in that haunted house for a while, and they used to do that kind of stuff to me all the time, and I would get so frustrated. I remember I needed to go to work, and I laid my brush down on the bathroom sink, and I had to get up, go use the restroom, and then I was trying to get back ready and I hadn't even left the bathroom, and then the brush was gone. I scoured the house. I said, okay, maybe I didn't leave it in here. Where did I leave it? I looked everywhere. And then finally I was like, no, I never left the bathroom. It's got to be in here. And then finally I just threw my hands up in the air and I said, okay, this isn't funny. I have to go to work. You know? And then I turn around and the brush is back on the counter. And
oh man.
Yeah, they used to do that kind of stuff all the time. My daughter had a stuffed animal that was a Siamese cat, and she called it Baby Blue. And she took it with her everywhere. And one day it just disappeared. Just totally disappeared. I mean, she was so upset, but because she never took it out of the house. It was she slept with, and she loved it. It was crazy. But yeah, they can be kind of mischievous at times. Listen, we are coming up on the hour, and since we are doing this on the phone, I don't want my phone to die while I'm talking to you. Sure. But this has been a very interesting conversation, and if you are going to be watching the replay, can you and if you have any questions, I'm sure Phil will jump in and answer those questions if he sees any comments. And if you are watching it on Facebook, then, and you have any questions, he'll jump in and answer some of those things. And if he doesn't see it, I'll make sure that he does. And I'm seeing people pop in at the last minute, you guys. So,
no, it's fine.
But if anybody has any last minute questions, just my phone's about to die and he's on the phone. So, Lucky Stone said, great show. Very interesting. Thank you very much, Lucky Stone.
Thank you.
If you guys have any other questions, like I said, you're watching the replay or whatever, feel free to just ask or comment or whatever. We love the comments. Please, I'm going to say this and I'm going to say this and I'm going to say this and I'm going to say this over again. Please, please, please make sure that you follow us, that you like it, that you share it. We are trying so hard to get up to 1,000. And, there's I think YouTube has came up with all these crazy new comments requirements about comments, like you got to have a certain amount. So I don't even care if you just say, hey, you guys are full of shit, just say something. Okay.
Yeah, forward it, post it to your friends. You can also reach me at healinglightworks, WORX.com, and reach me there, post questions, and I want to thank everybody for participating.
Yeah, I'm gonna put the information in the comments and stuff. So I'll make sure.
Thank you.
And since this is a live, I'm gonna have to go back into the description. I'll probably do an edited version of this as well, so that whoever's watching this doesn't have to deal with the whole first 15 minutes of us trying to deal with the chaos. You guys, I really appreciate it. Remember, subscribe, like, share, and lots of comments. Okay. Have a wonderful day, you guys, and thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.